This is an RNZ podcast.
This is RNZ National. It's Nights. Mark Leishman here for Emil Donovan, who has taken the night up to have a nice little birthday celebration. His birthday today, so happy birthday to Emil. And we welcome in, of course, being a Wednesday night around about this time, it's time for Mediawatch, and the one and only Hayden Donnell is in the chair. Kia ora, Hayden.
Kia ora, Mark.
Gosh, what a bombshell last week when Colin Peacock, your adversary, your partner in crime, whatever, he announced that you were leaving. My goodness.
Yeah, this is my second to last.
Yes.
I thought that Emil had just gone because he couldn't stand to be here, knowing that I'm going to leave.
He's been bereft.
But he's actually celebrating.
Well, he is actually. But not for that reason, Hayden. I promise you.
Well, it feels a little bit pointed, doesn't it?
So what's the story? What's happening? I mean, we won't dwell on it, of course, because you've got in 2 weeks' time you do your final show. But can you tell us what you're up to?
Going back to a place where my work has appeared quite a lot, and I actually worked for a year back in 2016. I'm going to the spin-off as a senior writer. So it's just a full-time gig. I'm only part-time here, and I'll be putting out a whole bunch of stories per week, so you can check me out. Or if you want to still hear or listen or read anything that I have to say, then you can still see me there.
I've got to ask this question. How do you listen to so much media? I mean, what, you haven't got enough hours in the day.
You know what, Mark?
I
don't. Like, let's face it, I'm mainly targeting just what I'm assigned for the week. I've got a couple of young kids at the moment. It's Colin really who's the weirdo here. When I started, I was like, Colin, you can't really be listening. I said the same thing that you just said to me, and he's like, oh no, I dabble. But every time I talk to him on a Monday, he's listened to 14 hours of News Talk ZB. Sometimes he will talk to me about something that appeared on the platform that he's on every single minor media channel. I think that actually that's a very sick brain that he has, and he's keeping this operation afloat, and you'll still have all of that encyclopedic media knowledge even long after I'm gone, so don't worry about that.
Oh, we're going to miss the sparring, though, I tell you. Between Midweek Mediawatch and the Sunday morning program, and the sparring between Hayden and Colin is always a joy.
Oh, I'm glad that you think it's a joy. My uncle listened, and he talked to me about it. He's like, oh, well, you guys just don't like each other, do you? So it's not, I think some of the subtleties of it aren't always being communicated, and people just think that we really do hate each other. But I'd like to assure people that that's not the case. And
well, you live
Colin is very annoying. We do get along.
You live 800 kilometres apart. That's probably close enough, is it?
Oh yeah, I think any closer, and it would actually be far too much.
Now we must get on to the job at hand. Looking at the media for this midweek portion, and this is really tragic. This story there's so many tragic stories out of the Middle East, out of Israel and Gaza, etc. But the journalists in Gaza, now, 5 have been killed by Israel this week?
Yeah, it's a grim procession. Israel assassinated the prominent Al Jazeera correspondent Anas al-Sharif and 4 of his colleagues on Monday in a targeted attack on a tent that they were working in outside Al-Shifa Hospital in North Gaza. And this is really, as you say, just the latest in a long list of killings by the IDF. There were 5 other journalists from Al Jazeera that have been killed previously. In total, the latest count is at 242 journalists, at least, that have been killed in Gaza, though Al Jazeera has the count at 270. By some measures, it's the deadliest conflict for media in history.
I mean, how are they allowed in there? I mean, is Al Jazeera, obviously, it's got a sort of privileged position in a sense, but how journalists aren't generally allowed in that area, is that correct?
It's Palestinian journalists that are still there, that live there, that come from Gaza. International media organisations are not allowed access to Gaza, and that's one of the problems, really. That's something that media organisations have been talking about and complaining about, that these Palestinian journalists have been left in Gaza at great risk and appear to be being killed one by one.
Has Israel provided any justification the attack?
Well, it's admitted that it was a deliberate attack, but it claimed that al-Sharif was a Hamas operative. They called him a mouthpiece of intellectual terrorism, which is honestly a chilling phrase to me. What is intellectual terrorism? It released evidence of his past involvement with Hamas, but that dated back to 2019. Now, this is Sky News UK asking an IDF spokesperson, Nadav Shoshani, why the only information that Israel has released as evidence for its claims is at least 5 years old.
Why are you not able to release information that shows that he was currently working with Hamas?
Right. So there's many types of intelligence within Gaza. There's many types of intelligence that the IDF has about what's happening in Gaza. One of them, what we showed to the public, are papers that our forces were able to find in different locations within Gaza. Those are easy to declassify, relatively easy. There are more complex, more delicate intelligence that we have to treat very carefully.
No, just trust us. We've definitely got information. We just can't show it to you.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something that Al Jazeera, press freedom groups, multiple press freedom groups, they've all denied this. They've condemned the assassination as a targeted attack on journalists. The Committee to Protect Journalists, Sarah Kudah from there, says that Israel's pattern of labelling journalists as militants without providing credible evidence raises serious questions about its intent and respect for press freedom. But I just think even if Israel's justification was true and he was somehow an operative of Hamas, 6 others were killed in this attack, his 4 colleagues, 2 more people. Are we just accepting that level of what's sometimes termed collateral damage as a fact of war, just something that you can justify if one person is involved in Hamas, which is obviously something that press freedom groups and others dispute even in the first place?
Has it actually been condemned? I haven't read much about this, I must confess, but I mean, has it been condemned by journalist associations here?
Yeah, it's been condemned around the world, but also I'd just like to note that it has been condemned here at home as well. Kawea Rongo, that's our local independent Māori Journalist Association. They've issued a statement condemning the killing, calling on the government to, well, do a whole bunch of things, but condemn the intentional targeting and killing of journalists and media workers in Gaza. They've called on the government to call for an independent investigation of these and other killings of journalists in Gaza, demand foreign media, as we talked about earlier, that demand foreign media are allowed back into Gaza unconditionally to report what's going on, pressure Israel through concrete diplomatic measures to end its blockade on aid, and sanction Israel until it meets its obligations under international and humanitarian law. Those are the asks from Kawea Rongo.
Now, did Anas al-Sharif, he actually left behind some statement to read in the event of his death?
Yeah, this is becoming something of a grim tradition. It's a relatively long statement. You can seek it out. It's all around the place. But it begins with the words that, if these words reach you, know that Israel has succeeded in killing me and silencing my voice. And he continues, I never once hesitated to convey the truth as it is without distortion or falsification, so that Allah may bear witness against those who stayed silent.
And as you say, he's not the first to have actually thought that and prepared, I suppose. Journalists
over there have started to pre-write their obituaries, which is something of a sign of exactly how much risk they're at all times, and their hopes for the future are being pretty minimal. So another Al Jazeera journalist, Hobson Shabat, was killed in March. He was also smeared as a terrorist by Israel. He was also defended by Al Jazeera and the International Press Institute, among others, and he had written his own obituary. And he said, if you're reading this, it means I have been killed, most likely targeted by the Israeli occupation forces. And then again, by God, I have fulfilled my duty as a journalist. I risked everything to report the truth, and now I am finally at rest, something I haven't known in the past 18 months. Very similar.
how do they get the material out? Do you know? I mean,
I don't know the process there, but obviously they had a media tent that was bombed in this case.
yeah.
There is equipment, there's internet. You can go to Instagram and get pictures out of Gaza, obviously. So it's not exactly easy, but it's possible.
Now, beside the human cost, obviously we're losing people, experienced people who can tell us exactly what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's already, as you mentioned, pretty difficult to get information out of there. The people that are trying to deliver that information are at risk, and now they are dying and being killed. The Palestinian Journalist Syndicate says that this is systemic killing, systemic targeting of our journalists in Gaza from the Israeli government. Now, you might remember last month, many of our largest media organisations, including AP, AFP, they were raising concerns that their journalists were starving, that they were dizzy, they were too hungry to work, and they wanted to pull their journalists out of there. That's another way that the information is no longer coming out. And you've got commentators in the UK, like Owen Jones says that this is Israel essentially killing the witnesses ahead of its push into Gaza City. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel plans to annex Gaza City. So there's this fear that this is getting rid of the people that will report the reality of what's happening in this next military push. And Kawea Torongo, again, they've said this, attacks on journalists are not solely attacks on human life, they are direct attacks on press freedom and on truth itself. And I think the implication in all of this is that killing journalists is you're trying to stop that truth from getting out. There are no more people to stop that, to disseminate that truth and the reality of what's actually going on, and that allows you potentially to act with even more impunity.
Well, let's, I was going to say brighten up things just a tad, but it's I'm not sure.
Well, it's bright. I think just about anything in the world would be brighter. So, I mean, depending on your perspective.
We're talking polls.
The polls.
Poll week.
Will be either encouraging or discouraging, I guess. Or
Yes,
what's this one? It's directly in the middle. It's a hung parliament. Is that encouraging or discouraging? Maybe the right would be more discouraged by a hung parliament, seeing as they're in power. But that was a Taxpayers Union Courier poll that came out early on Monday, showing that the left bloc and right blocs are level with 61 seats each. And I just wanted to note one thing about that, Mark. Interesting stuff, really interesting. Chaos poll. One issue, it was announced by multiple media organisations as a prediction of a hung parliament.
A year out.
Yeah,
at least.
A prediction? Is it a prediction? I don't know. I just have a little bit of an issue with that terminology. Maybe I'm being a pedant here. A bit of maybe I'm being a stickler. But a single poll a year out from an election, is it really a prediction? Maybe it could be referred to as a projection, but I think its predictive power at this point is virtually nil, and it's
looking for more clicks. Do you think, using the words that?
Well, I don't even think. I think
people.
that's just how people interpret polls, is that as a prediction, but really they're just a snapshot in time. And it'd be definitely, if you were to just use this as your one data point for a prediction, then it would be a pretty inaccurate way to do so, because one poll does not a trend make. Now, it's worth noting as well that this is a media thing. It's not the Taxpayers Union or Courier. They haven't described this poll as a prediction in their own write-up of the results. I just think the language is a little bit over-egged there.
And do people at this point in an election cycle actually really care that much? Because we know once the campaigning starts and the pressure comes on a bit, that's when they probably become more reliable. But even then, they've been proven many times to be completely unreliable.
Well, yeah, and that is one of the issues with polls. A, they're unreliable, but B, I think if you start referring to them as a prediction, then it's essentially helping to shape the political narrative, because there's this thing with polls where they become self-fulfilling prophecies, essentially. If you're polling poorly and the media is saying that it predicts that you're going to be out of government, or you're going to be out of power, or you're going to be rolled, or whatever, then that becomes its own narrative that gets its own momentum, and then that feeds into the more polls. And so, yeah, I think there is a little bit of a risk in some of that language. And you are, as you say, you have to be a bit sceptical about any poll at this point of the election cycle. People aren't as tuned in as they will be next year.
So we had the Taxpayers Union predicting it was a hung parliament, and he's done. Then a day later we had the One News Varian poll.
Yeah, and this one was slightly better for the government, but again showing a tight race. And on this one, the TV networks have always got to hype up their polls, right? And it's
good content for the first sort of 5 minutes of the bulletin.
It's great. You must love poll day if you're running a 6 p.m. news bulletin, right? You just got your first 10 minutes absolutely sorted straight up top, and you've got the format sorted as well. You know exactly how to run it. And you always have Mikey Sherman doing the results, and then she transitions into a prepared package, a story package. And I do love how sometimes they do these things. It's a bit of a media style point, but they always find these creative ways to ensure that their script matches the sometimes pretty frickin' random, to use a Chris Luxonism, random visuals that they get of politicians on poll days. And in this case, Chris Luxon was up a mountain with Australian PM Anthony Albanese, and they had to use that visual.
He's got a mountain to climb.
So, yeah, exactly. So this is how Mikey Sherman transitioned into her package.
And hello, it's Shane Jones popping up for the first time as winter reveals who's cosy and who's out in the cold. Out on the snow, hosting Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Christopher Luxon's competitive streak was on full display.
Out in the cold and the snow. It wasn't a mountain to climb. I think a mountain to climb would have been great.
Was a step too far? Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Who's out in the cold? Chris Luxon in the snow. Great little visual cue there.
Good
Synergy. Good stuff to Mikey Sherman.
Now, along with the headline, the party vote figures, etc., we also get the classic preferred Prime Minister numbers, and those were pretty bad for Christopher Luxon as well. But pretty good for another political upstart, I suppose.
Yeah, so Luxon, he's on 20%. I think he's down quite a lot. He's sunk from 29 or something down to 20. It's not like Chris Hipkins is absolutely roaring ahead, though. He's on 19%. Both of them have fallen way behind another candidate called Don't Know. And Don't Know is up at 31%. And I think John Campbell quipped that maybe Labour or National should get in touch with Don't Know, see if he or she would like to come on board.
Is it perhaps evidence that the preferred Prime Minister should be dropped to, that whole question?
This is Colin Peacock's contention, and as we know, there's a bit of enmity between him and I, but he thinks that this is evidence that the public, as you say, they're just not paying attention that much. They don't care. They don't have that much of an opinion. They can't even be bothered to come up with a half-hearted response about whether they prefer Chris Luxon or Chloe Swarbrick or Chris Hipkins or anything. And I think perhaps, what do you think, Mark?
Well, I just think between elections, we've got the Prime Minister we have. Nothing can be done about that. And, what's the point of it? Especially when those...
So you're on Colin's side here. But
pretty much.
It's just not absolutely clear to me what these results mean. It could mean that we passionately hate everyone.
Yeah, and isn't it popular? It's like when Luxon turned up at the netball and got booed. Well, I'm sure just about every Prime Minister who turns up gets booed.
Is it an interesting data point in itself that we can't even muster it within ourselves to prefer one of these people, that we don't like any of them? Is that an interesting data point?
Isn't it just?
And look, I'm going to go ahead and predict that Colin will not succeed and that this question
will keep coming back.
Remain. And you're probably right. It is a reminder to all of us in the media that the public isn't quite as obsessed with day-to-day political machinations, who's performing well in the House, who's up, who's down, as we are in the media. Or again, maybe they are just filled with burning hatred for all politicians.
Yes, indeed. So... after the One News Varian poll, we had the preferred Prime Minister, and that's the polls. And what about the other topic you were going to talk about was the Hobson's Pledge?
Yes. I'm not sure we've actually got to this. Just as a recap, Hobson's Pledge put up a series of ads opposing Māori wards, and one of them featured a Māori woman's face with the words, "My mana doesn't need a mandate." And that woman, as it turns out, was Ellen Tamati. And she hadn't given consent for her image to be used, and she actually strongly supports Māori wards. And this has caused, as you know, a kerfuffle.
And that, of course, was reported everywhere, a big story. And if you were that person, you would be pretty upset. But the organisation that first had the story is actually, a smaller operation who picked it up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I've seen them being credited that much, but the people that first had this and really broke the story was Okaha News, and it's a small organisation serving Tainui, Te Arawa and Tauranga Moanis, so Central North Island Māori communities, and its story, as you know, made for national news, and it featured an interview with Tamati, and it's a pretty moving interview, honestly. She described her reaction to the ad like this.
Still hurt, still angry. Bloody traumatizing.
So yeah, she's obviously incredibly emotional at seeing her face alongside this message about Māori wards, and she was supported in that interview by a couple of her mokopuna. So here's Anahira Parata talking about just why this was so hurtful to Tamati.
I feel angry. My nan shouldn't have to feel like this. She was already brought up in that generation that got real beaten out of them. And now she's having to go through this when all she does is fight for Māori. And they're using her image against her to promote an opposite view.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it actually happen? Because surely doesn't it go back to an issue with purchasing stock photography that you check that it's okay to use?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Liam Ratana explained it for the spin-off, but the basic facts of it are that Tamati was photographed at Waitangi, and the photographer that took that photo licensed the shot to iStock, Shutterstock. Those are major stock photography agencies, and so Hobson's Pledge then bought the photo from those services. And so Hobson's Pledge initially defended itself, saying that its image was bought legally from a stock photo service, but the thing is that this image was marked editorial use only, so this wasn't an appropriate use for it. It shouldn't have been used in an ad like this.
And will it be now considered a breach of advertising standards?
Well, that's the question that remains. The Advertising Standards Authority says it's evaluating more than 140 complaints about the ad, but it won't be issuing any more statements until it comes to a decision.
So who gets the blame? It's not just Hobson's Pledge involved in the decision-making.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. It's not. So Don Brash, obviously Hobson's Pledge leader, he talked to Sean Plunkett on the platform about this, and he laid the blame somewhere else.
We have a company which organises our campaign. They made the ad for us.
Okay, who are they?
Sorry?
Who are they?
I don't think we need to know that name, do we?
I'd like to know. I think transparency is a great thing.
Okay, that's true. Okay, it's called the campaign company.
That's the company run by Jordan Williams.
That's correct.
Yeah, so as you heard, the campaign company run by Taxpayers Union founder Jordan Williams. And this isn't its first run-in it's had with the Advertising Standards Authority. It was also involved in another ag campaign for the Sensible Sentencing Trust, which ended up falling foul of that organisation. And in that case, you might remember these ads. They mimicked Green Party branding, and they placed an image of one of its MPs, Tamitha Paul, alongside the words defund the police, or in another case, whoop whoop defund da police. And then the phrase vote green was down at the bottom of the ad, just over some much smaller text explaining that this wasn't actually a Green Party ad and was authorised by the Sensible Sentencing Trust. And a lot of complaints again over that one. The ASA in that case ruled that the trust needed to more clearly signal who was behind the ad. So this is the campaign company, Jordan Williams' company, has a bit of a history of pushing the boundaries with its ads.
So do we need better checks in place for some of these?
Well, the
particularly
stock photo
photos?
thing is an interesting one. It was marked for editorial use only. Should there have been more checks in place? Should Lumo Billboards, the ad company that put this ad up, should they have somehow been involved in the checks? Should there there are actually stock image providers that are more ethical, that pay their talent and their photographers better, that have better verification processes. True Stock is one of those. They might be talking to us on Mediawatch. That's a local one. It's an interesting thing though, right? Because even if this wasn't marked editorial use only and somehow it was a stock image, the idea of putting a sentiment that and directly attributing it to the stock image model that they don't agree with, it feels a little bit odd to me. I don't know how many rights you sign away when you say, look, I'll be a stock image model, I'm going to let my face be anywhere and associated with
Although
anyone.
she
but
was
the
just
sentiment, the actual words are being attributed to Ellen Tamati, and that feels like a bit of an extra bridge.
Because she was basically just there attending. Was it Waitangi?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. This is an editorial
photograph.
that makes it more cut and dry. I mean, if you're just like a stock photo model,
yes,
and you've signed away all your rights, this sort of thing, would this then be an appropriate thing? Because people are releasing memes now of Dom Brash saying support Māori wards, like images of Dom Brash. And there's nothing better than a Māori ward, just to say like this is a bit of a pretty questionable practice if you are trying to misrepresent a real person's views to support your case, which they would likely disagree with. I mean, it's an odd thing. I don't know where it stands legally, but it's an odd.
We're going to have to leave it there, Hayden,
one.
because I'm 15 seconds away from Todd's news. But thank you so much. It's been lovely working with you. Probably won't have the chance again, but all the very, very best in your future.
Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure.